For this mock performance, I decided to use a piece of acetate that I had already had, which provided a large area. I ensured the acetate was free of dust and had minimal scratches. When I initially created the scenes, I tested using plain white printer paper as the main screen. This made the performance area slightly smaller to account for taping the edges, and I also worried the smaller details might be lost due to excessive layering. I positioned the phone underneath the screen with the screen facing up to serve as my main view to monitor the puppets during the performance. However, I noticed a reflection. I experimented with repositioning both the light source and the phone, but the reflection persisted, though slightly reduced. Placing another piece of paper over the screen only made the reflection more pronounced, and moving the phone further away from the screen reduced the reflection, but I worried about losing details and overall production quality, especially if I have to rely on post-production edits. Once I added the oiled pages to the screen, the reflection became less visible, so I continued with this setup for the rehearsal. Since this is intended to be a stop-motion performance, this rehearsal focused more on transitions between scenery and puppets and observing how the various elements work together rather than perfecting every specific movement. As I progressed through each scene, I made several notes to refine the final production. I liked the darkness surrounding the musician and the contrast between light and shadow. However, with the acetate screen, the phone's reflection was especially noticeable in the darker areas. Since my stop motion requires the screen to be face up, this remains a concern. I anticipate returning to plain paper for the main screen. I have several large sheets of paper that I could oil to preserve details, but this is something that I plan to experiment with as I prepare for the final performance and recording. The stool moved a lot during filming, but should remain stationary throughout except in the final scene, so I plan to stick it to the actual screen so that it stays in the same spot except for when the musician kicks it at the end for comedic effect. During the rehearsal, I noticed that the musician accidentally got a bit of oil on it, but this didn't affect the opacity of the throw, which was reassuring. The camera was crooked during filming, but I managed to fix this in editing. I was initially concerned that the snake puppet wasn't opaque enough and that the scenery was too visible through the puppets. However, I grew to appreciate this as a stylistic choice. I also tested different layering techniques, including adding layers digitally after recording, which could help ensure smooth scenery transitions without obstructing the puppets or causing reflection issues on a plain paper screen. To further improve the performance, I remade the snake and butterfly puppets, enhancing their details and making them more dynamic with more joints for movement, specifically with the snake. The squid appeared a bit sloppy during rehearsal, so I replaced it with an octopus, which has fewer arms and maybe a little easier to maneuver. I also created more music notes to better convey the story of the music. These adjustments will help me achieve a more polished final product.